Hello, everybody. I think we've that's people slowed down now in terms of joining. Oh, just as I said that, somebody else has requested to be admitted. Yeah, I think that's slowed down now in terms of people joining. So thank you for joining us. We are Optimo. It'd be really lovely to see your faces if you do want to come off camera, but quite a lot of people probably know by now that that also gives a higher carbon footprint actually if you put your video on while you're on video call. So and you also might be eating your lunch. So it's entirely up to you. Please do also feel free to introduce yourself in the comments as well and share LinkedIn profiles, etc. if you want to connect with other people. I am going to just let you know what we're going to be talking about on this webinar. So we are the Optimo team that have put this session together for you. We really wanted to share our experience of our B Corp certification. And wanted to let you know about three things. So first of all, what impacted our decision to pursue B Corp in the first place, the process that we went through and how we sort of operationalized some of the good business practices that are part of the B Corp assessment, and some of the benefits that we've seen since becoming B Corp certified. So hopefully some of the stuff in here will be of use to some of you. So yeah, we'll get cracking. Sorry, bear with me, too many things going on. So we are a business improvement consultancy, which we don't always use that word. So we help to facilitate operational improvements basically for organisations that are focused on environmental and social change. And that might be either through the product or service that they provide, or certainly the way that they want to run their business. I am Danielle. I'm the founder of Optimo. I have an operations and consultancy background. I'm a project manager by background. Also very passionate about nature and people, and very committed to making a difference. And I'm currently kind of exploring all of the ways that I can combine my professional experience with that passion. So that's what I've made a career out of these days with Optimo. Vicky, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, yes. Just while we are at the beginning, Danielle, your microphone is a little bit in and out. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that, but do you just want to, while I waffle on and introduce myself, do you want to just check your settings?
Yeah.
But hi everybody. It's yes, I'm director here at Optimo. So my background is I'm a business analyst. So I love rummaging around people's virtual cupboards and asking lots of questions like a small toddler following you around the office. But my background is working in many different sectors, including the public sector, not for profit, and commercial spaces. But I also have got of over 15 years worth of technology delivery experience as well. So we're helping people build software, customize software, to meet their operational needs. And I'm really passionate about trying to bring technology and sustainable thinking together wherever possible in the world. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thank you. So some of you might have heard this before or variations of, and if you want the longer version, then please do feel free to drop me a message to arrange a coffee at some point. But the shorter version of what is my story is also important in the story of Optimo. So wanted to kind of share some of that before we get into it. So essentially when I was, excuse me, when I was in my 20s, I went traveling and kind of building on top of my existing sort of awareness and connection to the natural world. The absolute wonders that I experienced had a really incredible, profound effect on me, really. And brought me a kind of inner sense of calm that I hadn't ever felt before. So as we fast forward to the chapter of my life that saw me set up my own business, I kind of always knew really that I had to use the responsibility and opportunity of being a business owner to look after the beautiful world that we live in. And these are some of the pictures from that trip. I mean, the pictures just never do things like that justice, do they? But so when I heard about B Corp, I basically just knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue, and from very early on, had kind of been following this movement of people wanting to use business as a force for good, and specifically the B Corp certification. But it kind of took me a while to basically have the time to kind of commit to the assessment itself. But had started kind of with that in mind, really. So I was building some of those principles, I guess, into the business from really early on.
So we were thrilled last August to become the first LGBTQ plus and female founded consultancy in Yorkshire. To achieve the B Corp certification, which we were thrilled about when we got the news, but it's also something that we are extremely proud about even now, and we will remain that way. We love talking about it. We love sharing the story with it. And yeah, as a team, the whole of Optimo are really, really chuffed to finally got the call last year to say that we had made that achievement possible through lots of hard work.
So B Corp was important to us, as I've said, right from the outset for me personally, but it also really felt right for us as a business. So one of our really core values is about making a difference in the world. And it sort of felt important to us to validate what we stood for, really. We were always we are really passionate about kind of creating a fair environment for our team. Our team is really important to us. The well-being and kind of conditions that they operate in is really important to us. And the processes and the kind of framework of B Corp also helped to really validate some of those things that we were doing well early on anyway, but also to help us figure out where we could make even more improvements to the way that we were doing things. So it strategically sort of felt like the right fit, really. I don't know whether you will have noticed, but what we haven't put in there was marketing or kind of commercial opportunities. And whilst it was a consideration, it actually wasn't the kind of driving factor for us. So you'll see in a while that it features in the benefits, but it wasn't necessarily something that featured heavily, I would say, necessarily in our kind of reason to pursue it in the first place.
So we put some stats together about the advantages of what B Corp brings, but also it's quite helpful to maybe understand a little bit about what B Corp is as a movement as well. So in late 2023, B Corp surveyed 2,200 adults in the UK, and the findings were fascinating. So more than 58% of UK adults use business certifications to help decide who they buy from, which is really it's a really high number if you think about it. When we make our buying decisions, it's these are the things that people are starting to look for, and our commercial buying habits and even personal buying habits are more and more becoming influenced by the types of organisations that we're working or we're looking to do business with. B Corp brand awareness is now up to 38%, and you may have seen B Corp on products or services that you come into contact with through your professional or personal lives. If you use Graze boxes, for example, B Corp is branded all over their little snack boxes that you buy from the supermarket. The B Corp community in the UK is now set to grow by 25% in this year alone, which is staggering. And just recently at an event, I heard about another organisation here based in Leeds that have just achieved their B Corp status, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and I want to applaud everybody who goes through that journey. 2 out of 3 of the respondents also believe that the government should introduce measures to encourage all businesses to behave like B Corp businesses. And that says a lot, you know, like do we ask the government to try and bring that into us? That's a different question and probably a different webinar. But, you know, encouraging the behavior and being able to show what you stand for is really important, especially when it comes to our buying decisions. And, you know, we can all think about who we want to do business with more by having these types of certifications available to see. So I think we're going to do a quick poll, if I'm right.
Yeah. So we just wanted to do a quick poll to understand you in the audience, if your hands aren't otherwise occupied with eating your lunch or whatever. But we just wanted to understand what your interest or experience of B Corp is and where you might be in terms of your own sort of experience with the certification. So if I've done this right, then I will launch a poll now, which will ask you just to answer one question. That's it. So let me see if that's worked. Vicky's nodding, so thank goodness. Yay.
Give you all a minute to click a box if you've got your hands free.
Mm. There's a couple of you that haven't quite yet. Okay.
You're looking intrigued. Is it looking? How's it looking?
Yeah. So I was just waiting to this. We've got like a couple of people that haven't answered yet, and I was like, well, they won't know, but that's fine. I'm going to end the poll now. So these are the results. Hopefully you can see.
Oh wow.
So there's quite a few people considering it and or have already started the assessment.
Wow.
A couple whose business is already a certified B Corp. I don't know how many of our team answered that, so we might have skewed the results there. But otherwise, welcome to the other B Corps. That's awesome. And those that are just kind of wanting to know a bit more about it, there's a couple of you as well. So that's interesting. Yeah, again, some of you might have heard me say this before, but I was in the wanting to know about it and considering it for my business for quite a long time before I started the assessment. Brill. Yeah, and sort of opened the assessment and then closed it again in horror and opened it and closed it again in horror probably a few times before I actually got started on it. So cool. Right, let me get rid of that. Right.
Okay, so we just talked a little bit, well, we just touched on assessments a little bit there. But to give you a little bit more of an insight into what the assessment looks like and how you're examined as a company, I thought it'd be useful for us to share the 5 different key areas that you are assessed against and how you interact with that. So the first one is governance. So a company's overall mission, ethics, accountability, transparency, and how they build their vision and values into their bylaws is kind of the high level of it. But it focuses on how they engage employees, board members, and the community overall to achieve that mission that they have is really, really important. As well as with their employees access to financial information, customers opportunities to provide feedback, and the diversity of the governing bodies. Under the workers, this is really important around the business's efforts to create a positive impact through the workforce. So looking after the people that you have within your core workforce is really an important factor in this. It looks at the aspects such as employee compensation, the benefits, training and ownership opportunities, as well as assessing working communication and job flexibility and worker health, but also within safety practices and your overall work conditions, depending on the type of business or organisation that you are running. Under community, they're also looking at how a business contributes to the economic and social well-being of the communities in which they are operating. So this explores the initiatives and policies directed at community projects, including embracing supplier relationships, social engagement, charitable giving, and a strong, diverse communities. Under the environment, they look at how a company works towards a more sustainable and regenerative planet by reducing their footprint and putting their impact on the air, climate, water, land, and biodiversity first in their business practices. And this explores the impact of the company's facilities, materials, emissions, and resource and energy use as well. It also looks at the transport, distribution channels, and the environmental impact of the supply chain that supports that business as well. So thinking not just within your own activities, but the people that you work with and help you achieve your business vision and plans. The final one is customers. So how a company surveys their customers, offering products or services that support the greater good, so people helping people. Explores whether a company adds value to customers' lives by providing critical services like education, healthcare, and finance management, as well as engaging with ethical marketing, data privacy, security, and other feedback channels. So it's quite a lot in there. It feels like a lot when we explain it like that, but hopefully by the time we get to the end of the session, some of that will make a little bit more sense around how you can actually bring that to life within your own business or organisation.
Well, thank you, Vicky. So thinking a bit then about how we tackled the process of the assessment itself. To begin with, when it was just me and Charlotte in the business, I did the open and close thing a few times, and I started actually by trying to make a note of what the questions were, where I thought I could start to make some changes. So I kind of went about it back to front, I think. But thankfully, when Molly joined the team full time, it meant that I had an extra pair of hands to kind of help me out with it. And Molly was really instrumental, to be honest, in kind of running that assessment process. So in terms of the way that we would recommend that it's done, so in the first instance, I would go through the assessment and answer all of the questions based on your current position. So answer those questions honestly about how things genuinely work at the moment. There are different questions depending on the type of business that you run and the size of the business that you run. So there are different what they call tracks depending on the sector, industry, size of the business. I was recommended to wait until a new financial year as well before you submit. So the further away you are from that the year before, while it sounds like a long time, that actually gives you the run up to be able to kind of implement some of the processes and procedures that you might need to before you reach that point. And the reason for that is it just helps to have a full year's worth of things like your finances and a whole year's worth of activity to kind of look back on, to be able to say, yes, I actually did these things last year, which is something that it will ask a lot. So go through the assessment, answer the questions really, really honestly. One of the first things that you'll be asked to do is to, or that you should do and could do, is to update your articles of association. So that is changing the documents, the legal documents for your company that says that by law you have to act in the interest of shareholders, but what we're trying to achieve with B Corp is actually to act in the interest of all stakeholders. So go through the assessment, answer honestly. You can bookmark questions as well, so you can come back to them, and kind of get a feel for where you are currently, which is obviously a good baseline then for you to start to make improvements. So then you want to look at where you can improve. I guess I would say quick wins, but everything really needs to be properly embedded into the way that you do things and owned properly. So it's more about like, where are the things that are most easily operationalized or implementable? So there's an improvement report section actually within the assessment. I've put a screenshot here just so that you can see where it is. That actually pulls out the questions that you could potentially make some improvements on and get additional points. I don't think this was here when we did it, so we ended up with a bit of a convoluted downloading a Excel file with before and after answers in the questions so that we could figure out what the gaps were, and we turned that into our action plan. So this is way easier, so thanks for that, B Lab. Need 80 points to certify, but again, it's a good idea really to aim higher than that, because the point at which you get assigned an analyst as part of the when you've submitted your assessment, if you have any points taken off you for whatever reason, then it just means that you've still got plenty of wiggle room to get your first score to certify. So when you've got your oh, sorry, Amy, it was 80 is the minimum for certification, 80 points. So the next step then is to create yourself an action plan, basically, for the improvements that you have identified. Really turn it into something that is going to that you're going to stick to. So what we did was put tasks. We use Asana as our kind of task and project management system. So we put tasks in there. We would review the action plan on a sort of weekly basis to make sure that we were constantly making progress on it. And you could put it into your meetings to make sure that it's being talked about on a regular basis, but really find a way of making sure that it's something that you will prioritize.
So how we brought it into our organization is a bit like how we talk about operations with our clients as well. So we covered it through the information, technology, process, and people approach. And these are all the kind of the key things that we look at to be able to help an organization work at their optimum. But we also, did that on ourselves as well. So we were learning to, or should we say, we started to walk the walk that we also put our clients through, and it helps create a harmonious kind of cycle of everything coming together, and draws in all the key areas to make sure that everything is working at its optimum. And these really can cover all sorts. So I'll just talk through each one of these and some of the things that we looked at. So when we look at the kind of the people side of things, this for you could include things like the training that you have for your particular employees, or maybe coming up with a comms and engagement plan to tell your employees about what's happening and what does it mean for you guys. There may be some things that you want to be as transparent as possible with the teams that you're working with, to take them on the journey to B Corp with you. Excuse me. When it comes to the process, it may be that you need some policies or some new processes, some new ways of working, and that takes time to be able to figure out. No, obviously, just take the time to be able to sit down and do that if you're in a busy working environment, and carving out that space to be able to sit down and come up with those. But by getting on top of things, and even sometimes it's document them in the first place. If you're quite new to this and you've just been running through your business, doing the do really fast, sitting down and actually getting it out of you or your team's minds about what your processes are is quite crucial to it. From a technology point of view, I think, just as like Danielle mentioned, was keeping track of the actions and what are the enabling processes that you need to make sure that are happening. So the tech that you use in your business, make sure that it's it's holding you to account, or you're using it as part of the overall journey that you're on. And one lesson that we definitely learned was around information and gathering information. How are you measuring your progress against that journey to your certification? Making sure you're thinking about that, collecting the data, whether it's OKRs or KPIs or anything like that. Any way that you can capture information that is meaningful to you will help you understand where you are on that journey, and you can help you measure the distance that you have to get to that end goal. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. I don't want to read through all the points on the slide because you can obviously all read.
Well, thank you. So I just wanted to share with you some specific kind of initiatives that we implemented and operationalised to align with the framework in case they were helpful. You are very welcome to take a screenshot of this, or we can share the slides afterwards. Again, I'm not going to read through all of them, but there were a couple of key points that I thought would be worth picking out. So the one of the first things that I did was look at the kind of governance aspect around board meetings or directors meetings. So at the time initially, Vicky hadn't yet joined as co-director, and so what I set up that B Corp suggests is what they call a non-fiduciary board, which is basically an advisory group that provides guidance to an organisation but doesn't actually have any accountabilities around legal or financial and no kind of decision-making authority. So they offer advice, but they're not actually accountable for decisions. So I set up a business owner peer group, a small group. So I asked two other business owner peers locally to support me with holding me to account around the decisions that I was making for the business in line with the B Corp framework. So, and the way that we set it up was actually we had a 90-minute session every quarter where 30 minutes I would talk them through the decisions that I had made in line with the B Corp framework. And then for the other 60 minutes, they would each have 30 minutes to kind of talk about whatever they wanted to talk about in relation to their business. So we were all getting something out of it. And that was my way of kind of building the B Corp framework into kind of accountability around the decisions that I was making. So that can be a useful one for small businesses where you may not have other directors or something that you can describe as a board for your decision-making governance. We also set up a progress measures dashboard. So we track relevant metrics on a monthly basis. So things like employee satisfaction, volunteering hours, charity donations, carbon emissions, client NPS, all sorts. So those are all of the sorts of things that you will be asked about within the B Corp framework. And so those are things that we actually collect data on a regular basis as part of business as usual. And then other things like from a people point of view, we looked at our recruitment processes, so how we could build diversity and inclusion into those. So thinking about where you're posting your job opportunities, doing things like blind CV sifting. And then for our team, we looked at how we might provide relevant training, volunteering days, and building social and environmental objectives into individual kind of appraisal processes. Again, I didn't want to go into loads of detail about these, but those are some of the ones that were really kind of, I would say impactful in terms of the things that we operationalized.
So a question that we get asked quite a lot is, what are the benefits that we've seen since receiving our B Corp certification? And in particular, here's a few of the examples that we wanted to share because it's might not be what you think it is, but it might be as well. But trust in the brand and what Optimo is has been one of the things that's really stood out for us. And from an employee point of view, we found earlier this year when we were recruiting a new team member into the fold that we've got going on here. Lots of candidates were drawn to apply for the roles because of the B Corp certification, and they understood what it meant to them, and it aligned with their own personal values, which I think is phenomenal, and it really did shine through in the types of applications that we got as well, where people were talking about what was important to them in their own personal lives and their own personal values and how they related to it themselves. I mean, it would be a faux pas if I didn't mention the community. Across Yorkshire itself, Yorkshire has a great community of B Corp organisations who come together, and they organise webinars, social events. You might have seen some of the posts on LinkedIn about the B Corp Festival that happened. I think it was earlier this month, based down in Oxford, which if you have a quick scroll through LinkedIn, you can see what the buzz was about it, and it looked phenomenal. I had a little bit of FOMO because unfortunately I didn't get to go, but one of our team members had the pleasure of going and seeing what the buzz was about, and they definitely were excited and came back energized from all the great things and meeting some fantastic businesses. But the main thing for us is it is a robust framework. And if you're going to do it because you're just trying to attract a new client or kind of tick a box, then it's maybe not the right thing to think about. Becoming B Corp is kind of, it's ingrained in everything that we do, as we've talked around already. Doing it because you think it looks good, or you might be, thinking of it's going to get you a one up against a competitor, may not be quite the right mindset to have. So, just to kind of give you an idea about how where we go from here, you don't just become certified and yay, that's it, you can stick a badge on your website or whatever. You actually have to recertify every 3 years, and that's not just another tick box. You must improve on your score from the last time that you did your assessment or your reassessment. So it really encourages that continuous improvement cycle within your own organization, and it makes you think about how do you keep thinking about your employees, your community, the impact that you're having on the environment as a business leader and owner as well. And it really, again, it's about making sure that for us, business as usual is about keeping ahead of the curve in terms of what we're doing. You can build it into your business as usual tasks and your day-to-day operations through your task management systems, regular reviews. Talk about it in team meetings. It's one of the things that's regularly talked about within our own weekly meetings that we have, and it's just something that is become BAU for us. And for when we talk about continuous improvement, track how you're doing against your assessment. Take some time to just do a little bit of stock take, maybe after 6 months, even less than that if you want to, every quarter, every 6 months, just to make sure that you're keeping it in the front of mind, because like I say, it's a non-stop cycle of being, making sure that you're being a responsible business, and you're doing, you're continuously looking to be more aware, more beneficial, making a bigger or greater impact on the environment as you're going through.
Well, I think that's it. So we're going to move on to the more kind of interactive section now for any of you that have got questions. So either pop questions in the comments or observations and experiences. There's a few of you that have started your assessment already, and a couple of you that are working for B Corp organisations, certified B Corp organisations. So we'd love to have a bit of a chat. There's a QR codes here for me if we're not already connected and you would like to be. So I'll leave those up for a couple of seconds, and then I'll probably bring the slides down and we can have a bit more of a chat, I would have thought. Cool. So we've got one for, hi Amy. How long did it take you from the initial assessment to achieving certification? Well, so let me just stop. Okay. Yeah, do feel free to turn your camera on if you are around, Amy. But so the initial assessment from when we submitted our assessment to certification was 6 months, I think. But we took about 12 months to work our way through the assessment, through the questionnaire. So through kind of formalizing some of the stuff that we were doing already through policies and kind of creating those operating rhythms and things. There was stuff that we did have to kind of start new and set it up and embed it basically. And then the thing that I mentioned as well around waiting until the end, just after, like in getting into a new financial year, basically. So all in all, it was an 18-month end-to-end process for us. But yeah, six months of those was waiting for them to assign us an analyst. They had quite a big backlog at the time. I think the point when we started looking at B Corp, they'd got like an 18-month waiting list. But ours was 6 months, and then when they did assign an analyst, that was really quick. I think we got bombarded with questions to provide extra evidence and stuff for a couple of weeks, and then that was it. Hope that helps. I'm just going to go to Fran, because you put your hand up. If you want to come off mute and ask your question. Oh, it's you, Fran.
Hello, Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Vicky. Long time no see. Oh, sorry, I was a little late to the webinar, but it's great to join because it's just so interesting learning more about B Corp. And obviously, so I work at Leeds University. I know that you know that already, but just for anyone else in the room, as a business engagement manager, we're finding lots and more companies interested in B Corp and wanting to know more. So I'm sorry if you've already covered this because I was a little late, but I just wondered, how did you first come across B Corp and kind of what was your original motivation for going through this sort of accreditation process? How did you get involved?
Yeah. So
I'll turn my audio off because I've got a lot of background noise here and just yeah.
No worries. Yeah. So I the beginning of the kind of what Optimo is now, if you like, because I was doing something different with the limited company originally, but when I decided that I wanted to turn it into what is now Optimo, it was during lockdown. So there was quite a lot of I mean, webinars was like the only thing that we could do because we were all stuck at kitchen tables or in spare rooms, weren't we? So I had just been coming across lots of different webinars about there was a hashtag going around at the time, which was hashtag Build Back Better. There was quite a big movement around using business as a force for good. And I heard one of the local B leaders on a panel talking about B Corp. And I just kind of went, yeah, this is what I want. This is a space that I want to be in, basically. So you know, I did sort of mention this earlier, but that's absolutely fine to repeat. So it was basically about the framework that it provides in terms of validating what you're doing internally and how that you know, responsible business practices that you might be using, which was particularly important for us because of the nature of what we do at Optimo and the nature of the types of clients that we work with. So and also about the kind of environment that it would create for our employees as well, and the kind of working environment that it would create for the team. So we sort of said, you know, we have probably seen some benefits in terms of brand awareness and commercials and talent attraction, but the initial kind of drivers for us really was that it was the right thing for us to do strategically in terms of what, you know, what we stand for, our ethos, and also gave us a bit of a kind of framework for things internally as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Danielle. Good to hear. Lovely.
Yeah, no worries. I've spotted a couple of questions in the chat.
There's a couple in the box.
Matt, so what are your thoughts on starting B Corp when you're just starting your business? Versus wait until the business is more established with employees, etc. Yeah, so this is almost exactly the sort of dilemma I had really early on, I guess. So what I would say is I do know single kind of one man and one woman bands who have achieved B Corp. So it is doable. And I guess the problem is that you're also balancing doing the work and marketing the company and, you know, all of the other things that you have to do when it's just you. But honestly, if you at least understand what the structure of the assessment is and what some of the content of the questions are, etc., then it potentially even just helps to have some of that in your mind in terms of the way that you start to do things. So even if you don't necessarily want to specifically pursue the certification, some of it can be helpful to provide you with the kind of structure of the way that you run your business in the first place. So I think it's probably like the timing thing is probably up to you in terms of the capacity that you've got to put the time to it. But I would say, yeah, understanding what's in there is probably a good idea anyway, whether or not you think it's something that you'll pursue later.
Yeah, I think this is, I'm just going to add to that is that we've spoken to organisations who have used the framework to set their business up from, you know, from day one and never pushed the button to actually go through certification because they actually felt that using the framework was enough for them and it aligned enough with what they were trying to achieve as business owners to feel comfortable. And you know, actually to go that extra step wasn't really going to be anything that they felt they were going to get any more value from. So not that I'm trying to talk you out of it, but it's, you know, it's there are lots of organizations who just use it as a base for, you know, good ethical business practices.
Brill. So yeah, there's a question that Molly has swiftly answered from Luke about impact reporting. So yeah, we have done ours in alignment with our fiscal year. I would say it's probably taken us a couple of months worth of work, so we don't quite get them out immediately after the end of the fiscal year. But yeah, at the moment we align ours with our business financial year, and there are a couple on the website that you can have a look at. We actually did. So our first impact report, I think, was before we became B Corp. So we did that one in a certain structure, and then the one afterwards we actually structured in line with the B Corp sections. So whether we do the same again next time, I'm not sure, but we are approaching the time that we need to start thinking about that because the end of our financial year is the end of October.
I've just popped a link to our impact reports. We try, as one of the kind of key pillars is we try to be transparent. So we do share ours online. So if you want to have a nosy at our how we're doing at our attempt, then please go have a snoop around. You're more than welcome.
Oh. So Luke says we were late in starting it and found ourselves with around 2 years worth of great improvement activity to speak about. Oh, that's cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the impact reports, and this is why it's really useful. We're finding it really useful that we're actually tracking some of that data that we want to report on, you know, as part of BAU, because it, in theory, will make the impact reporting process a lot quicker. I think we faffed about more with design and structure and stuff with the last one because none of us are designers. So I think that was probably more difficult than what was going to go in it, I think, for us last time. What was your biggest challenge in becoming B Corp? Yeah, we probably haven't necessarily covered that actually, Fran. So don't worry. It's probably worth knowing or talking about. Probably the resource and capacity to do it, I think, really. So Molly, when Molly joined full time, that really helped Charlotte and I, because at the time Charlotte was part time and I was obviously full time, but running around like a headless chicken trying to do the 1,000,001 things that you're responsible for when it is kind of a small team. So I think, yeah, it's that juggle. I think specifically for small businesses, it's that juggle of like making sure you are prioritizing it when you've got so many other plates to spin. I think what we've seen in some larger organizations, just in case that's relevant to anybody here, is potentially, again, just kind of getting it prioritized with the board or with senior members of the team, and potentially sort of thinking beyond initial certification. I think engaging people in the wider kind of team with what it is and what it's about. It can be quite difficult if it's done in a silo. So somebody kind of works really hard to set up policies and processes and things. But yeah, if it is done in a silo, then it kind of negates all of the hard work that's gone into it, really, because one of the points of it is to really kind of embed it into the way that things are genuinely done within the business. Yeah, Catherine says definitely a good idea to get a system in place for keeping track of what you have done and are doing, both for the impact report when you come to it annually, and to make sure that you don't do something great and then it fall by the wayside as other stuff needs working on. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if you haven't already and want to, then do feel free to connect with Vicky and I on LinkedIn. If there's anything that you think of later that you're like, actually, yeah, I could have done with asking that, or you want to talk to us about anything, then do give us a shout. And yeah, thank you all for joining and giving up your lunch break. It's nice to see so many of you on here. I didn't see your beautiful faces, but you are all there, so. Ah, good. Yeah, no worries. Right, well, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and enjoy the rest of Leeds Digital Festival if you've got any other events to go to. And yeah, thanks again for coming.